The following program contains descriptions of real-life violence that some viewers may find distressing.
When a murder is discovered.
What we found in Monica's home was pretty disturbing based on how violent of a scene that we found.
Lives are torn apart.
It was the most gruesome homicide scene that I had ever seen. The sheer amount of trauma caused to Monica's body by another human being took me back.
It's up to the police to track down the killer.
He has a gun?
Yes.
Okay, what kind of gun? Could you tell?
I don't know.
All right,
He had a knife and he held it to my throat.
When you want to build a case against someone in a homicide case, you need to establish the means, motive, and opportunity. And if it was a random person, what was the motive?
Meet the murder detectives, who reveal how they caught the killer.
This crime will forever be written about in Bloomsbury's history books. This is by far the worst crime that ever took place.
What I learned is all the fake things that your parents told you, like don't be afraid of the boogeyman, don't be afraid of that noise in the other room. There could be someone in your house. It happened in this case, and I saw it. A case like this is different than the movies because it doesn't happen in an hour and a half. This took every minute of 4 weeks and a lot of luck. It was a lot of procedure, it was a lot of slow movement, a lot of interviews that in the end meant nothing and led nowhere. I'm Lieutenant Nicholas Oriello. I was the lead detective on the Monica Massaro homicide back in 2007. Bloomsbury is a small, rural town about 4 miles from the Pennsylvania border. It's a little farm town. There's one light in town, very slow moving.
Bloomsbury doesn't have a local police department, so we are policed by the New Jersey State Police. The police would deal with, very minor property offenses, a stolen garden gnome, or things like that. Certainly nothing of this magnitude. But thankfully, the state police have experience as an agency dealing with larger crimes. But in Bloomsbury, this would not be in their expected regular duty.
On July 30th of 2007, the state police received a 911 call from a concerned citizen who requested a well-being check be done on his house cleaner. She was supposed to clean his house, but he hadn't seen or heard from her in several days.
Perryville Station also received a second call for service that a woman's driver's registration to her vehicle and some personal belongings were found around some railroad tracks in Bloomsbury, and coincidentally, they happened to be the same address on Main Street. When the troopers responded to the 2 calls, they gained entry to the house and found a deceased body lying in the bedroom. So they called back to the station and requested a detective respond to the scene.
I received a call from a sergeant at Perryville Station. I had a newborn son at home that was 2 weeks old. And the sergeant said, Justin, we need you to come back to work. I think we have a homicide.
Upon gathering information on the house, we learned it was Monica Massaro. Monica was a 37-year-old female, the same person who was the cleaning lady that the well-being check was called on, and the same person whose vehicle registration and car insurance were found about a block and a half behind the house. We were able to pull her picture up and identify her that way.
As the detectives traveled to the scene, nothing could prepare them for what they would find.
My name is Justin Blackwell. I'm a captain with the New Jersey State Police. In 2007, I was assigned to the Monica Massaro homicide investigation as a number 2 detective in the investigation.
When I got here, I decided to do a walkthrough so I understood what I was working with. Upon entering the house, most of the house was very clean, in order. I made my way to the bedroom where Monica's body was found on top of the bed, having suffered many, many stab wounds. Blood had soaked through the entire bed and mattress, and it was apparent that something very violent had happened inside.
This was the first homicide that I had investigated, so I was shocked by the sheer amount of blood and the injuries to Monica's body.
She was found laying in her bed on her back with her t-shirt cut open and no pants on. She had a very apparent deep knife wound to her throat and a very big knife wound to her chest. It was a shocking scene. It's just not what you go into your normal day expecting to see or encounter. So it definitely was very surprising when I got here.
It seemed as though it was a personal attack. Someone that knew Monica had possibly gotten into an argument with her. Someone in her inner circle that would have done a personal attack on her.
I noticed right away that there was not forced entry. The inside of the house was in order. It was pretty clean. Nothing had been turned upside down or trashed. So I found that very weird for such a bloody scene.
Initial inquiries into Monica Massaro revealed she was a well-known and popular member of the community.
I am Mark Peck. I was the mayor of Bloomsbury, New Jersey for almost 9 years. Monica and I were friendly acquaintances. We would see each other, walking on the sidewalk and would, wave and say hello, maybe stop and make small talk for a minute or two. Monica was a very outgoing, bubbly person. I don't know anyone in town who met her who didn't like her.
At the time of the killing, the local community was in shock. Everyone in that community in Bloomsbury knows each other. Families have raised their children in that community together for generations to come. Everyone was scared, thinking it could be someone in their community that caused this murder.
As police combed the crime scene, items of evidence were gathered for closer examination.
I was a bench scientist, and my responsibilities at that time would have been to work on the items that were submitted for that particular case. My name is Dolores Caniglio Rivera. I'm a forensic scientist with the New Jersey State Police Office of Forensic Sciences in the DNA laboratory.
We held the crime scene for many days. Our crime scene technicians processed every inch of Monica's apartment, from her office to the kitchen to the bedroom. The bedroom was a very bloody mess. One thing that we did find that seemed out of place was that there was tissues. There was one on the floor and one in the wastebasket that appeared to have blood on them. We immediately sent those blood samples down to our forensic laboratory, and we learned that it was Monica's blood and not the blood of whoever killed her.
It was a pretty violent murder, and judging by the crimes that were committed upon Monica Massaro's body, there was some suspicion that there may have been a sexual element involved. This information would help determine the types of specimens that should have been collected from the crime scene and submitted to the laboratory for testing.
Through all our processing, several days, we came up with no DNA that would link the crime to another person. So there were no fingerprints found at the scene. There was no blood. There were no foreign hairs. There was no saliva. We found no evidence of a person that went in here.
While detectives arranged an official warrant to search the rest of her home for additional clues, Monica's body was taken for autopsy.
So the coroner estimated that it was probably a day before we found her body that she had been murdered. Monica's autopsy showed that she was killed by a cutting to her throat, which was the initial cut that led to the almost decapitation. She was stabbed 17 times. However, the throat cut caused her to bleed out and expire. The rest of the stab wounds were post-mortem. There was a giant cut down the middle of Monica, exposing her chest plate and her stomach, and also appeared as though whoever had done this attempted to cut her breast off.
The stab wounds appeared to be personal, as if someone was trying to send a message. It led us to believe that it was someone that she was intimately involved in that had killed her.
Monica's body showed that she wasn't just killed. She was literally desecrated. They are stab wounds that are really just indicating the anger and the rage of the offender. So any additional stab wounds, especially those that occurred after she was already dead, really were just for the fun and the excitement and thrill of the offender.
In what seemed such an aggressively motivated murder, officers delved into Monica's personal life and who could possibly want to kill her.
Looking into Monica's history through her social media accounts, Monica maintained a personal diary that she wrote about everything in. We learned that Monica had friends all over the country. She was an avid fan of the band Aerosmith and frequently followed them around the country, going to their various tour dates. And she would sometimes go to motorcycle rallies and gatherings across New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So Monica knew a lot of people. She had a lot of friends. We didn't find many enemies, or people that wished Monica harm.
With a victim so well liked, but with no forced entry into her home, police turned their attention to people Monica trusted.
Monica had an ex-boyfriend that she was still seeing. He had a fiancée who had recently threatened Monica and told her to stay away from her man.
We came to find out that this ex-boyfriend had maintained an intimate sexual relationship with Monica up until the point of her death, but we were able to rule him out through an alibi. Another suspect that we had was the person who actually initially requested us to check on her well-being. We didn't think it was too common where people would ask for their house cleaners to be checked on at their home.
He was very frantic. He had shown up at her house. His family was down the Jersey Shore at the time, so he was alone. He got interviewed for several hours, and he was very confrontational. And that individual showed up at the crime scene in his vehicle. When detectives went to approach him, he took off, and we had to chase him down and find out why he was showing up at the crime scene again. So I found that to be an unusual behavior. But we were able to use cellular telephone data and a timeline to establish that he was not around at the time when the coroner believed that Monica was killed and when she was last seen alive. After a couple days, we were able to rule him out.
As the search for a suspect widened beyond Monica's inner circle, police took a closer look around her home.
Monica had a very quaint bedroom. You could tell it was a single person lived there. She had stuffed animals on her bed. You could tell, like, she was kind at heart. She just had what appeared to be a pretty simple life.
One of the things that sticks out to me is that at the time of her death, Monica had been reading the latest release of the Harry Potter book series, and that book was laying next to Monica in the bedroom. The fact that there was no sign of a struggle, it didn't appear to be a forced entry into the house, led me to believe that it must have been somebody who knew Monica that committed this crime. Making next-of-kin notifications in law enforcement is one of the most difficult things that a law enforcement officer can ever experience. It's one of those things that no matter how many times that you do it, it never gets any easier. And you often carry that with you in the memories of the notifications for the rest of your career.
Monica's family was heartbroken when they learned about her murder. They had bought the house out in Bloomsbury, rented it out to her so she could have her own life, have her own business. Nobody wanted to hurt Monica. There was no apparent person out there that wanted to cause her harm.
At a dead end with their investigation into Monica's murder, police looked into any reports made in recent days that that could indicate a stranger being present in Bloomsbury at the time.
People started reporting things to the state police that had not been reported prior. On Saturday night, which would have been July 28th, there was a mother and daughter who said they were watching TV and thought they heard a prowler outside of their window in the bushes. They looked outside the window, didn't see anything, thought nothing of it. And several other similar reports were brought to our attention. At the time, people dismissed what they thought were prowling reports to maybe possibly the wind, blowing branches or causing noises outside their home. Nobody would have ever thought there would have been a prowler lurking through Bloomsbury. So for the first time in a long time, people started locking their doors to their cars and their homes and really looking over their shoulders as they walked through town.
As police attempted to track down the anonymous night prowler, one of their suspects, a man whom Monica knew, raised alarm bells.
Between Monica's journals, her call detail records, her calendar that she left notes on, we had determined that she had gone to a club in central New Jersey and met a man there. And this person was not from the Bloomsbury area. And he was just someone that Monica had mentioned to her friends. They had hooked up and spoken on the phone a couple times. And Monica wasn't interested in pursuing a relationship with him.
They had dinner together once or twice, and he just quickly appeared to grow very enamored with Monica. Prior to Monica's death, he had left a cryptic voicemail on her phone that we came to describe as a breakup voicemail. And the tone of the voicemail that he left Monica was essentially, if I can't be with you, then no one can be with you. It was a very disturbing voicemail.
We were able to identify him, track him down, and he denied meeting her, and we had to play him the voicemail for him to admit that it was him on the phone. Like whether he was going to harm himself or harm her. And the fact that he wouldn't own up to it originally made us very suspicious of him. But based on his work schedule and timeline, we were able to rule him out as being involved in the murder.
After we ruled out those initial suspects, we had to start thinking outside of the box, and we had to start considering the fact that Monica had been murdered by a total stranger. So we broadened our search outside of her immediate group of associates here in the state of New Jersey.
We looked at people that were part of her online community, Aero Force One, which was the online Aerosmith group. We looked at people in her business networking group.
We knew we had an uphill climb and an uphill battle. I had to start relying on analytics, various database searches, and good old investigative work, hoping to find a lucky break in the case.
As the investigation continued, the grieving community gathered for Monica's memorial service.
We knew there was a lot of people out there that might show up to Monica's service, including the online community. So we had detectives show up in suits, and we also had detectives in plain clothes, just kind of listening to conversations to see if we could learn something new that we didn't know about.
I think that we felt the most pressure trying to find Monica's killer for her friends and family. We wanted to bring closure to her parents, who just lost their daughter, and we wanted to bring closure to some of her closest friends. But the pressure also mounted from people who didn't know Monica but lived in Bloomsbury. We wanted to put the community at ease and to restore the town of Bloomsbury to the sleepy little town in Hunterdon County that it once was.
It was frightening to think that Monica was murdered by a random person. Why would someone just randomly go into Monica's house and kill her? That could have led us to anybody in the country. Who was this random person that could potentially have come into her house and killed her and left without a trace?
As the investigation ran on, we started focusing on the truck stop and did that have any impact or any role in bringing someone to that area that was from the outside, someone that may have had a role in Monica's death.
Truck stops are almost always in different police jurisdictions, if not in different states. And unless police are reaching out to each other, there's really no way to notice patterns that are going on across them. And the truck drivers who are there one day and gone the next. Very difficult for anyone to keep track of where they're going or where they may have done the exact same thing in the past.
As the truck stop near to Monica's home became a location of interest, police drafted in help from outside law enforcement agencies.
VICAP was a program that the FBI was running at the time called the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, which basically you would give what we call an MO, a modus operandi, and some brief circumstances of your case you put into the system to see if there are any potential matches. Now, there were no matches for homicides during that time frame, but we did receive notification through that violent crime analysis program that there had been the attempted murder and sexual assault of a 15-year-old female in Chelmsford, Massachusetts on July 30th of 2007, which happened to be the same day that we discovered Monica Massaro deceased.
What is your emergency?
Okay.
Come now.
Is there somebody still there?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a male party?
Yes.
He has a gun?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of gun? Could you tell?
I don't know.
All right.
He had a knife and he held it to my throat.
Okay. A gun and a knife?
Yes.
Okay. He's in the house?
Yes.
Okay.
He's threatening my parents. Please.
He's okay. Do you know who he is?
I have no idea. He won't speak.
She was sleeping in the bedroom next to her parents. She got woken up by this intruder. Her parents heard their daughter, who was a teenager, whimpering, and they thought that was weird. So her father came into the room, saw the individual standing above her, jumped on his back and put his arms around his neck and started trying to restrain the individual, who was much bigger. The victim's mom then came in the room and grabbed the intruder's knife with both of her bare hands so that he couldn't stab her daughter.
What does he look like?
I have no idea. He has a mask on.
I need you to stay on the line with me. He has a mask on, all black mask. He has a gun and a knife.
He's big. He's like a big guy.
Is he still in the house?
Yeah, he has a southern accent.
He has a southern accent.
And my dad's holding him down.
Okay, the father has the guy held down right now. We have cruisers coming.
My parents told me to wait out front.
You see the cruiser?
It just went by.
All right, go flag the cruiser down.
Okay.
Where in the house is he, do you know?
He's in my room. He came into my room and put his hand over my mouth.
Okay.
And then held a knife to my throat.
Okay.
Told me if I screamed, okay.
All right.
The officers in Massachusetts entered the home and detained the intruder, who was still being held down by the victim's father. He was immediately taken in for questioning at the local police station.
They identified their suspect as Adam Leroy Lane. Adam did some surveillance and did his background. He realized that he was able to get into the McDonough home through an unlocked back door. He then saw a vulnerable female sleeping by herself inside of the house, and he took advantage of it.
Given the similarities in the break-in and attack, along with the matching dates of Monica's murder, the detectives in Bloomsbury contacted Chelmsford Police Department.
Other facts that we learned about what happened up in Massachusetts when speaking with the detectives is that both the victim and her mother Jeannie's purses were taken out of the house and left on the back table on the back deck while the person was inside the house. Kind of similar to Monica's purse that was taken and thrown on the roof of the warehouse by the train tracks behind her house.
They were keen to learn more about the man in custody.
We called up and got a hold of the detective that did the investigation. And we said, hey, just on a hunch, we're spinning our wheels here in New Jersey. Did you keep his truck? He goes, yeah. I'm like, all right, do you have anything that links him to New Jersey? And he pulls out a receipt from the Bloomsbury truck stop on July 29th, 2007.
And they said to us, does a pilot truck stop ring any bells? Is there a pilot truck stop near your murder scene? And we said, absolutely. The pilot truck stop is about a mile away from our murder scene. And we will be up in Massachusetts tomorrow to come speak to you further about this case.
I actually jumped up out of my chair when they said we have a receipt from Bloomsbury. And it was the first thing linking an outsider, a random person with at least our town, you know?
Absolutely. I think I have a picture of the receipt in here. Here it is.
There you go.
What's that say? It says
July 29th, right?
July 29th, 2007. It's 5:13 in the morning.
Was he buying a radar detector?
Bought a radar detector for $94.99.
Yeah.
Right? Incredible.
With the receipt linking Adam Leroy Lane to Bloomsbury on the day of Monica's murder, detectives were optimistic he could be their suspect.
When Adam Lane was arrested in Massachusetts, he had with him a black leather mask, several large knives, a military knife with a serrated back, throwing stars, a choking rope, and other assorted weapons.
There were a huge number of items submitted to the laboratory for this particular case throughout the course of the investigation. The pictures that I saw of that knife, it was a very dangerous looking weapon. From what I recall, both sides of the knife had a serrated edge.
With a stabbing, the person has to be there and actually feel bones and ligaments being cut and really, watch the person that they're inflicting this on suffer. A serrated knife is literally intended not just to cut through bone and ligament and skin, but it's actually meant to tear it apart and make sure that there's no chance of survival.
The detectives were smart enough to realize there was something more going on with Adam Lane. So they executed a search warrant on his truck. And what was very startling, they found a DVD player with a little screen, and inside that DVD player was a movie called Hunting Humans. Hunting Humans is a movie that's about a serial killer who goes around killing random victims with knives and choking wires and, going around and essentially hunting his prey for the thrill of the kill. During a search of Adam Lane's truck, the authorities up there found a necklace that was very specific. It went around the neck, down the front, and around the waist that we were eventually able to confirm had belonged to Monica. So Adam Lane's truck went into a tow yard, and the tow yard emptied all of Adam Lane's remaining belongings into a dumpster. We were able to systematically search the dumpster for Adam's belongings. We found several sets of black spandex clothing. Mixed in with his belongings, we did find long blonde hair, which we believe could belong to Monica.
As detectives made arrangements to interview Adam Leroy Lane, Massachusetts police sent their evidence to the New Jersey Forensics Lab for DNA testing.
We were sent a sample from Adam Leroy Lane at some point after he was arrested, and that sample was used to generate a DNA profile. The key evidence were a few knives that had been collected from the suspect, and those items collectively had DNA from a number of different victims as well as from the suspect himself.
When the offender is bringing a murder weapon to that scene, there is microscopic evidence from other locations that they've been, and that could even be other crime scenes they've been at, DNA from other victims. And that's exactly what happened in this case, where evidence found at one crime scene not only identified the offender's blood, but also multiple victims.
This truck stops a little bit over half a mile from Monica's house, right at the end of Main Street. The stop is a big hub for travelers and transients. They come in, they can stay overnight, and then they're gone. People come and go all day long. During Adam Lane's interview up in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, he admitted to being at the truck stop here in Bloomsbury.
Adam, tell us what happened on the night when you were in New Jersey and stopped at the rest stop off Route 78. I was walking around, all the way through. I decided to go for a walk. I had lots of time. I went into his house and was going through it.
This one woke it up. Started screaming. He has about a minute. First thing I read, it happened.
And when you say it happened, what happened?
I guess I surprised her. She surprised me. I didn't know what I was going to do. There wasn't nothing else to do.
Initial impressions were that he was kind of like an aw shucks truck driver. He was very soft-spoken. He wasn't aggressive when he interacted with detectives, but he was also willing to talk to us.
Just take me through piece by piece as you entered into the community of the house.
I just walked down the street.
Okay.
We cut through some yards. The door was unlocked, and I went in.
So how many houses did you try?
I don't know. I just picked one at random walking through the neighborhood. If I seen somebody in the house or seen somebody awake, I'd bypass it. I didn't want no confrontation.
What would make you choose one house to try versus another house?
Well, if the lights went on, I mean, you know, or if you see the lights on, you see somebody moving around in there, and you didn't want to try that house. Or if you heard a big dog barking.
He actually was pretty eager to tell his side of the story. Adam went so far as during that interview, he helped them set up the video camera and tripod to capture his confession on tape.
Where did you cut it? Where did you cut it? What part of her body?
I had the knife, it was on the bed, about that long. She rolled against it, cut right here. There wasn't nothing to do. You couldn't, I mean, it was gushing everywhere. You couldn't do nothing with it. After that, when she died, it made it look like somebody had assaulted her and everything. I didn't know what else to do.
Adam, let's go through this. Okay? It was an accident?
Yeah, it was an accident. I never meant to hurt nobody. God knows I don't want to kill nobody.
He confessed, and then he put his head in his hand. And during that confession, one of the other things he wanted us to know was that he was going to kill the 15-year-old female in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, but he was not going to sexually assault her because he did not want to go to jail as a child rapist, but he had no problem going to jail as a murderer.
Adam Lane eventually confessed to being involved in Monica Massaro's death and insinuated that she had actually startled him. And she began to struggle, and she rolled her neck over his knife, causing her to bleed out in a short matter of time. Adam gave a very detailed explanation of the inside of Monica's residence. He actually drew us a map of the layout of her residence, where her bed was, where her kitchen was, where her living room was, where he went in.
This is the front door. This door was standing wide open. She come down. Surprised me. I was in the bathroom.
And then let's just slow down a minute.
No, this is her house. This is the bedroom. There's a closet back here. Her bathroom is right here. Tried to get her to be quiet. All I wanted to do was get away. I was out to hurt nowhere.
When she first sees you, where exactly are you? When you realize she first sees you?
It's the bed. She had come down. Well, she laid down, but she sit straight up and got out of bed when she seen me and started screaming. Let me draw it a little bigger. Here, this is the house. Y'all should get a good conviction on this.
Adam also gave a very detailed explanation of all the other stab wounds after Monica had died. And Adam explained that he wanted to throw the police off as though we were looking for a crazy person, and that's why he mutilated her body.
The masks were recovered at the time of Adam's arrest. He'd been wearing them when he broke into the McDonough house. I just think they spoke to the creepy nature in which Adam was obviously prowling through these neighborhoods looking for his next victim.
The mask that was used, essentially the only thing that the victim can see is their eyes. This is terrifying for a victim to see coming at them. Any victim that saw this would immediately know something bad is about to happen to them.
This is one of the leather masks that was collected. You can see the cutouts for the eyes and the nose and the ears. The DNA profiles that were obtained from some of these masks only matched back to Adam Leroy Lane. There was no DNA on the masks that were linked to any of the female victims in this case. This is a picture of the double-edged knife. The DNA testing showed us that there was DNA from both the female victims in this case on this particular item.
We had beliefs that Adam might have killed before based on the desecration that he did to Monica's body. It was almost as though he was comfortable with it, the way he cut her, almost like trying things out. We wouldn't know how many other cases there would be, but to go from 0 to that seemed very excessive.
Going so far beyond what's necessary to engage in the death of a person, it really suggests to police this is somebody that has such a level of anger and hatred and venom and such a capacity for murder. This is not going to be a one-off event. They've either done it before or they're going to do it again.
Concerned they might be dealing with a serial killer, police started looking for similar unsolved crimes that had occurred along Adam Leroy Lane's trucking route through the northeastern states during the summer of 2007.
After we were done in Massachusetts, we went down to Adam's hometown in North Carolina. We did our investigation there with the mother of his child, his girlfriend, his ex-wife, the people in town. And as we were traveling back to New Jersey, we got a call and we were told to stop in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, that they had similar cases to ours. And Pennsylvania State Police wanted to meet with us.
The cases involved a female who was murdered by the name of Darlene Ewalt, who was murdered while she was talking on her phone on her back patio. And then another one, she survived, but she was attacked while she was sleeping on her couch.
Darlene Ewalt was talking with close friends on the phone, just discussing life, when during the phone conversation, the phone went quiet and someone had come up behind her and cut her throat. It was a random act. Her son was home in the basement. Her husband was home sleeping in bed. So a random person came onto her property and cut her and then disappeared, just like that. There was a second attack 4 days later, close to Harrisburg. The victim was lying on a couch inside her house. An individual entered through an unlocked back door while she was sleeping on the couch, cut her throat, and plunged a knife into her chest.
She survived by luck. She sustained injuries from her neck, across her collarbone, and through her shoulder. Adam, he quietly and calmly left the house after thinking he had murdered her. Her case was similar to Monica's in that she was a female sleeping by herself at the time. After speaking with the detectives in Pennsylvania, we thought there was a strong likelihood that the murders of Monica Massaro, Darlene Ewalt were all connected.
The police out in Pennsylvania had collected items of evidence from the scene, including a glove that was left behind at the attack.
The DNA that was found on this particular glove was that of Adam Leroy Lane and Darlene Ewalt, which was a separate homicide in Pennsylvania.
Convinced they had their killer, police still couldn't determine the reason behind the nature of some of the victims' injuries.
None of the victims were sexually assaulted during these crimes. Monica was stabbed in her genitals, but she was not sexually assaulted in another way. And the victims in Pennsylvania were not sexually assaulted. So it was significant that there wasn't a sexual angle to these crimes.
The psychodynamic theory behind this is that for people that actually are unable to engage in sexual assault because they are suffering from either some type of dysfunction or impotency, they actually use the knife as a phallic tool and use that to stab the person in the genitals as if they were assaulting them sexually, which is even more brutal and sadistic, but really comes from the same mental place.
Adam Lane had a small criminal history, nothing extensive. He had no homicides on his record, minor assaults, minor things. What we learned about Adam after the fact is that anytime he'd go home after a long trucking trip, he'd wash his knives with bleach, clean his clothes. So we happened to catch him on the route that he was running before he got back home. So do I know if we ever would have caught him? I don't know. I can't say that we would have. We needed that little break in him getting caught in Massachusetts for us to put it all together.
Adam Leroy Lane was charged with homicide on August 28th of 2007. We felt an immense amount of pride in our investigation and pride that we could bring such a deviant and malicious killer to custody.
Adam Lane was charged with the murder of Monica Massaro, the murder of Darlene Ewald. He was charged with the attempted murder for the 2 Pennsylvania attacks.
Detective Olo and I had actually brought Adam Leroy Lane back into the state of New Jersey from Massachusetts. So it was a unique experience interacting with and transporting a serial killer. And seeing a human being in court and face-to-face that was capable of such violence against people that he'd never met, such random violence, was a feeling I'll never forget. He's what nightmares are made of, and the type of person that needs to be in jail for the rest of his life.
Adam Lane was eventually found guilty without a trial. There was so much evidence against him between our case in New Jersey and the other cases that he didn't even try and fight the case. He just pled to 50 years in prison.
He's currently serving his time in Pennsylvania. In the state of Pennsylvania, he pled guilty to life in prison in order to escape the death penalty. Adam Leroy Lane chose his victims through physical surveillance. He spent a lot of time in neighborhoods looking to find female victims who were alone. He certainly would have gone on to kill again.
With her killer safely behind bars, Monica's family were finally able to grieve.
I believe Monica's family got a sense of closure because we were able to explain that it was a serial killer going into females' houses. Monica didn't bring this on to herself. This was a random killer that found an unlocked door. It wasn't her doing that brought her end to her.
The Monica Massaro investigation means a lot to me. There's not a day that goes by that I don't drive past Monica's house or through the town of Bloomsbury and I don't think of her memory and think about having to find the killer of a female who I never met before she died, but someone who I knew very well after she was killed.
Adam Lane chose victims that were female. He didn't want to fight a man. He found vulnerable victims that a large man as himself wouldn't be able to fight back. I'm glad that the boogeyman's off the street. Does he potentially have other victims out there? Absolutely.